So I'm Bob Adams. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've had dozens and dozens of businesses, some very, very tiny businesses, some part-time businesses, and some much bigger businesses. My largest business today was Adams Media that I started in my basement with $1,500 and turned it into one of the largest independent book countries in the United States. I sold it to F&W Publications for over $40 million. I also founded the Careers Group by buying a single title annual magazine from Harvard Business School and developing it in a magazine group and sold that to Washington Post Company. And even when I was 20 years old, I had a little map business on the Nantucket, and I managed to sell that to a steamship company. But I've had many, many other kinds of businesses. This time, I'm engaged in Businesstown, a kind of like a Netflix of small business that offers hundreds and hundreds of free videos on how to start and run businesses. I have a Harvard MBA by background, but a lot of the entrepreneurial things I've learned have come along the way, and I've published and written quite a few books myself on the topic. So I'd like to focus particularly on you've got a lot of great expertise as a graduate student or a PhD candidate. How do you turn that into a business? And I think one of the big obstacles you're up against is, like any human being, you tend to be focused on, here's me, I get these great skills, how do I turn that into a business? And really what you want to try to do is to shift the paradigm to what can the market use that might be related to me, or what opportunities do I see? And it might turn out that you see a great opportunity that has nothing to do with all of your research at all. That doesn't mean your research and time was wasted, because you spent that time expanding your mind, thinking in all kinds of great directions. But for example, with liberal arts students coming out of college, I recommend they forget what they majored in. Forget you're an English major. You don't need to just work in publishing or get degrees in English teacher. You can absolutely go out and do anything in this world. I mention this to people, that if you want, you're kind of smart, you can do anything. And people say to me, well, I can't go and work as a doctor without a medical degree. And I say, take my brother. So my brother has a PhD in physics, and he's a chair of the Department of Material Science at Arizona State. But that's not what he's known for. He has an autistic daughter, and once he realized his daughter was autistic, he got involved in the field of autism. He never went to a medical school. He didn't take medical courses, but he's become one of the foremost researchers in the field of autism by applying his scientific discipline that he learned in the fields of physics and material science. This is an example how you can do something totally different with your background. Another example I think of is here I work at this co-share space in Cambridge, CIC, and I met a woman here, and her background was she was in a graduate program at Harvard in divinity. She decided maybe that's not my thing, and she started a jewelry business. Was that degree wasted? Is her undergraduate degree wasted? Probably not. That discipline and thinking probably helped her quite a bit. But there's one thing to have scientific background in thinking, is another to know something about business. The great news is you can learn about business, you can learn very quickly. I'd say if you sat down and watched videos for like 40 hours, you'd learn much of the basic key core stuff you learned in an MBA program. That's important to do. But most of all, I want you to think about your background and your expertise and how it can do something that's going to matter for a customer on the other end. Rather than just thinking, I have this expertise, how can I go out and sell it? Try to think instead of what a company out there, or what the market out there is willing to pay for. And sometimes you can do this rationally. You can put your strengths, your weaknesses, what perhaps competitors are doing out there, and put them on a nice chart and find an opportunity that's lurking. Sometimes you got to play with it a little bit. You got to find that moment of inspiration where it's a quantum leap, and maybe the best opportunity for you is not exactly in parallel with what your research is. In fact, I would suggest that is often the case. It might be you just hear about some other little research that somebody else is doing that's more easily applied. So you might still be thinking, I have a lot of core strengths that I've developed perhaps in advanced physics or biochemistry, and you think there's some market for them that can develop into a product and a business, but you're not sure what. So how do you find out? One of the key ways is to get out there and start talking with people in different businesses. You go to networking meetings, You find out what they're doing. And I think one of the things you often find out is that that market for that core research isn't the only way that your skills can be provided. Maybe in fact there's some kind of service, a complementary business that you can ramp up your skills and make them more marketable. I see a lot of people who coming out of advanced programs who have a particular specialty, but they end up using only a portion of that specialty in developing a very specific service that they go out of market. And then I think of, for example, in the drug industry, how yes, there are companies out there developing drugs. There are individuals who set out as one person try to develop that next drug. That's great, but often more of the money's made in the service side. It might be in a lab that provides testing for people who are doing development. It might be people who provide clinical research for the drug companies. Often in these service kind of businesses, there's a great opportunities in. But if you have these terrific specialized skills, you want to get out and start talking with people. Now you might be thinking, I'm really concerned somebody's going to steal my idea. I hear that all the time. Like sometimes I'm giving a talk and doing a book signing, and somebody say, hey, listen, I get this really powerful idea. I want you to give my feedback on the idea. I said, what is it? He says, well, I can't tell you what it is because it's too secret. You know, ideas I think are a dime a dozen. It's possible somebody's going to steal your idea. It's possible somebody already is doing your idea. But the chances are that somebody's not just going to copy your idea because you mention it. You have a passion for it, you have a fire for it. That's what's really important. Other people, they just hear your idea, it sounds like a good idea, they're highly unlikely to go out and pursue it. And I think it's generally much more important to get feedback on your idea. In fact, in business generally, you don't want to try to be like the next Microsoft or Amazon. Instead, you want to take some existing business and give it a twist. That's the kind of thing that's going to be much more likely to be successful. Finding an existing product or service and differentiate it. And here's a couple of tests. You want to differentiate in a way that matters enough to potential customers that, number one, they see your product or service being clearly different than the competitors, and number two, it's different enough in a way that matters to them so they're willing to pay for the difference. But you're so much better off generally increasing your chance of succeeding in business by being in an existing space and having a little twist on it than rather than trying to create a whole new space. Yes, there are billion-dollar companies that have been created that way and it's not inconceivable, but your chances of succeeding that way are much, much less.
Sure.
Well, there are many, many different ways to fund your business. And on the Businesstown website, we have, 10 different videos that talk about funding. Some are winning contests, some are alternative debt financing, some are different ways of raising equity. So there's a plethora of different opportunities for raising funds. But I believe that generally people who are coming out of a highly specialized background, a particular idea, tend to rush a little too early to get funding. And generally you're better off if you bootstrap. In other words, you run your business on a bone with almost no expenses, so you get as deep into the process as you can. If you believe in your business, you believe you have a great chance of making money, you really want to hold off as long as possible to get your initial funding. Ideally you want to get to a stage where you're showing profits, but if you can't show profits, ideally you want to show revenue. If you can't show revenue, ideally you want to show you have some customers who are showing some interest, or some focus groups, or some testing, or maybe you have a prototype, or maybe you have a design. The further you can move it along, the better position you're going to be in. Now, once you do go out and get them funding, how do you do it? You know, we could talk all day about how you get VC money, how you do crowdfunding, how you find angel investors, all that stuff kind of works. But often the best way to fund your business for those first few dollars is, beyond taking your own savings, is going out and begging your relatives and your friends for money. And when I say beg, you don't really beg. You put together a plan, just as you kind of would, or a slideshow, just as you kind of would for a professional investor, but you don't hesitate to go out and ask those people for money. Do you hate to do it? Of course you hate to do it. I hate to do it. My grandfather turned me down. My grandmother loaned me a little money, and it was pivotal to when I was ramping up a particular business. So that's one of the ways you start. But then a lot of people think, well, I should go for VC money. And yes, you can go for VC money at a certain point. when you're doing a total startup business, usually the kind of VC companies that will focus on startup businesses, of which there are a minority, want to see that there's some other VC businesses already involved, so it becomes kind of a chicken and the egg, and you got to kind of get one interested, so you're going to tell the other one someone's interested, and then go back to the other one and say some other one's interested, get them to close. But there are other ways to do it, and certainly one of the ways I would tend to recommend, beyond family and friends, and using your own savings and skimping possible, is seeking out angel investors. Maybe some of these angel investor circles, maybe a few individuals. I would try to keep it as simple as you can to get going. So part of my core belief in starting Businesstown was, while running a business can be learned, it's not just applying common sense. There's a lot of kind of common sense things you think would work in business. Like, you think if you raise a lot of money and hire the best people, you can be highly successful. And I believe those are not the most important things for success. In fact, there's an article in the New York Times that showed that startup companies that raise money for venture capital firms were inversely successful to the proportion of money they raised. In other words, the more money they raised, the less likely that they were to succeed. And this is one of the reasons I like to see people starting businesses with minimal amount of money, watching your expenses. And that's also one of my precepts in business, is you want to be cheap. But there's a lot of other precepts, and one of the most important ones is you have a great strategy for business and a terrific plan. This is different than just a concept for your product. Because when you think about the strategy, you think about the benefits for the customers, you think about how you're different, kind of like the magic sauce that pulls your whole business together. Now, many businesses today are reasonably successful without a great strategy, but they've kind of meandered along. So they're not successful because they didn't have a strategy, they're successful despite they didn't have a strategy. But you want to put the wind at your back, you want to have that great strategy, you want to have a terrific plan. In fact, I really believe that the business plan is the business. It's like, this is where you want to put all your thoughts, you want to put them together in a cogent, balanced plan, you want to really think it through, and it doesn't matter how long it is. What matters is you really deeply thought through some things. Otherwise, your business tends to be a mishmash that runs all over the place. And yes, you're going to be redoing that plan. You should be redoing the plan. But that's one of the ways you get organized in business. So this is some of the core things that I talk about on Businesstown. That it's that strategy, it's having a great business plan, it's being a maverick and testing your marketing, because marketing is so hard. These are just a few of the things that that are so important to do, and that are lessons are echoed in many of the different videos on the site. Well, some businesses are going to be much more scalable than others. I mean, as a broad sweeping generalization, a product kind of business is going to have the possibility of scaling up much larger, you know, much more of a chance of becoming a billionaire, and so on and so forth. Whereas a service business, you have a great chance of making a terrific income, but it's less likely to turn into a massive enterprise. It's less likely to turn you into a billionaire. I would suggest, however, that for most people, you're much better off starting a service business. Why is that? Well, the product business, well, your chance of becoming a billionaire is great. Your chance of being impoverished and ain't working at McDonald's flipping burgers is greater too. Your chance is so much higher in the service business. And today in our economy and in the modern world, the vast majority of employment in business is in the service area. Furthermore, if you're in the product area, you're competing head to head with giants. Even if you have a product that's somewhat differentiated, even a product that's better, often that bigger company with a massive sales force and marketing can still outmarket you, even though your product is better than theirs. I've seen that happen time and time again. Whereas if you're in a service business, you are a core part of the business. You are providing the service yourself, and that in of itself is highly differentiated. And you're the CEO, you're out there, you're selling your services, you are the services. A bigger company, that CEO probably isn't going to be selling against you. So you have a lot of inherent advantages with the service business and a much higher chance of success. Well, some people think you need a lot of experience to run a business. I've gone into so many different business fields, I have no experience whatsoever. I typically learn along the way. One of the things I've done in some fields, I've hired commissioned sales reps, independent sales reps, and initially I had no idea what I'm doing, but I've kind of learned from these guys and women as I've gone along. They've been tremendously helpful. Sometimes you can bring in advisors to your business that can help you. But as far as getting the business expertise and experience, you can get a lot of that by watching my videos on Businesstown, because not only do I talk about specific things I've learned, I talk about some of my war stories. I mean, basically when you go to like a business school, that's what you're doing, is you're learning other people's lives through case studies. You can buy some of these case studies yourself and see what problems people encountered in business. Get ready for some of the problems you're going to account for. But there's so many little businesses you can start. Sometimes it's easier once you're out there talking with people in the field and find out what are some of the little services that are going on. Some businesses just lend themselves to a much smaller company structure, to an independent consultant, to a 3-4 person firm. Often it's businesses that aren't core to what the company is delivering that can make a difference. For example, let's say you have some expertise in the field of biochemistry, but you feel you're not at the point where you want to go start a business based upon directly on your biochemistry research, but maybe you could go and do writing and promotional service, publicity services, or set up that for this kind of organization. Your expertise will help you get up to speed, help you be more convincing, help you write better press releases, better press materials, help the company introduce the product, talk up the product to the media, but it's still not directly a product kind of business, a service business, and it's something that you're much more likely to succeed in than developing your own company, your own core discovery company from scratch.